On the day I was to give birth, my husband and mother-in-law bribed the midwife. They planned to dispose of the mother and keep the son as soon as he was born. This way, they would get my dowry and he could marry his infertile childhood sweetheart, a perfect trifecta. But what they didn't know was that I had also bribed my husband's personal attendant. The moment my son was born, my husband, in his joy, would drink too much and accidentally fall into the pond and drown. A fitting dispose of the father, keep the son plan. After all, who wouldn't want the life of a widowed marchioness, with a son and a vast fortune? In the second year of my marriage to the Marquis of Yong'an, I became pregnant. Congratulations. My lady, my lord, the mistress is with child. Hearing the physician's words, everyone was overjoyed. My mother-in-law, who had never liked me, held my hand with a loving expression, her face blooming with smiles. I always said Evelina was a fortunate one, clearly fertile. From now on, you don't have to do a thing. Just focus on giving me a healthy grandson. Lord Valerius, who had always found me vulgar and reeking of money, also smiled at me. Evelina, you have worked hard. I smiled faintly, looked down at my abdomen, and instinctively touched it. Physician, can you tell if the child is a boy or a girl? The physician looked at me, troubled. It is too early to tell, but from the dark circles under your eyes and your recent trouble with sleep and appetite, it is likely a boy. The first 3 months of pregnancy are the most crucial. The fetus has just reached full term. You must take great care, my lady. I thanked the physician and had my maid give him a generous tip. Then I looked at Lord Valerius with affection. Husband, we finally have a son. I won't be able to serve you for the next few months. Perhaps I should find you a concubine. Lord Valerius was taken aback but quickly recovered, taking my hand with a sincere expression. You are very generous, my lady, but I made a promise when I married you. I will not take any concubines. You just focus on your pregnancy. I gave a small smile, hiding the scorn on my lips. It wasn't that he was keeping his promise to me. It was that he was afraid his beloved cousin would cause a scene if he took a concubine. That night, in his joy, Lord Valerius stayed in my chambers. In the middle of the night, a servant knocked on the door. My lord, there is trouble with the case in the western part of the city. You are needed. Usually at times like this, he would leave me without a second thought. But today was different. Before he could get up, I rose and fetched his outer robe. Go quickly, my lord. The case is important. The child and I will wait for you at home. I emphasized the word child. A flicker of guilt crossed his eyes, and he was about to get up. I suddenly clutched my stomach and let out a soft, pained gasp. Hiss, brow furrowed as he looked at my abdomen. His hand, reaching for the robe, paused and moved to support me instead. Is something wrong with your stomach? I'll call the physician. This was his first child. He couldn't afford any mishaps. I waved my hand and sat down on the edge of the bed, my lips a little pale. It is nothing. Your work is important, my lord. Pearl has already gone to fetch the physician. He will be here soon. Lord Valerius studied me with a complicated expression, then sat down beside me. It is not that urgent. I can go tomorrow. Seeing my expression relax, he added, now that you are with child, I will stay home and be with you. I replied happily, leaning into his embrace, looking utterly flattered. The next day, I used the same trick to keep him for lunch before he left, watching him hurry off to deal with his case. I couldn't help but laugh. I was just playing the fool. Did he really think I was one? When Lord Valerius was still the heir, he had a beloved cousin named Lilith. She was the second daughter of an earl, and they were childhood sweethearts, a perfect match. One day, while on an outing, they were ambushed by bandits. In the ensuing fight, Lilith was shot in the abdomen while protecting him. She was left unable to bear children. For a noble family, continuing the bloodline was paramount. A woman who could not bear children could never be the Marchioness, especially since Lord Valerius was the only heir. So Lilith could only watch as he married me. But though they could not be together openly, they often met in secret. And the code for these secret meetings was the case. The servant had mentioned. Pearl watched him leave, her excitement palpable. "My lady, this is the first time the Marquis has stayed with you for so long. With this child, he will come to your courtyard more often. Our good days are finally here." I looked at Pearl and said nothing. The silly girl was dreaming. This child wasn't a blessing, it was a death warrant. As soon as I gave birth to a son, Lord Valerius would kill me and bring Lilith into the family. My name is Evelina, the daughter of a wealthy merchant from the south. Normally, with my status, I could never have married into a marquise's family. But that year, a major event shook the capital. The emperor discovered a deficit of over 4 million taels of silver in the Ministry of Revenue, all embezzled by powerful nobles and officials over the years. The emperor was furious and ordered that all involved must repay the amount within 6 months or be stripped of their titles. The Marquis of Yong'an's family was on the list, and the amount was not small, 1,200,000 taels. The money had long been spent. The family tried every means but could only scrape together 100,000. So someone suggested a solution, a marriage alliance. The South was full of wealthy merchants. They could just find one, marry into the family, and cover the deficit. After the matter blew over, they could find an excuse to get rid of the unsatisfactory wife and marry another. The South was teeming with wealthy merchants, and my family was only the third richest. Normally, the Marquise's family wouldn't have considered me, but the two families richer than mine refused to send their daughters so far away to the capital. There was a precedent. The daughter of the former richest merchant in the south had married into a duke's family, only to be killed within 3 years. Her family's fortune was seized, and they were even falsely accused and ruined. With this warning, everyone shied away from the Marquise's proposal. Only I, upon seeing Lord Valerius, who had come to propose, my eyes lit up. I stopped my father, who was about to refuse, and said firm, "Father, I am willing to marry into the Marquise's family." And so the marriage was settled on the spot. Afterward, my father pulled me aside, fuming. "Evelina, you are my most brilliant daughter, planning to hand over the family business to you. Why would you marry into that wretched Marquise's family?" A wretched Marquise's family. It was the stepping stone I had carefully chosen. There were other noble families from the capital seeking marriage alliances for money, but only this one suited me. The old Marquis was on his deathbed, and Lord Valerius was the sole heir. It was only a matter of time before he inherited the title. Once I married him, I would be the Marchioness. "Father, do you think that if we refuse the Marquis and just continue our business, that will be the end of it?" I asked him. "Once these nobles recover, where do you think they will get their money?" "Scholars, farmers, artisans, and merchants. Merchants are at the bottom. If we have wealth but no power to protect it, we will be nothing but lambs to the slaughter. It is better for me to marry into the Marquise's family, secure my position as the Marchioness, and become the family's support. But the Marquise's family is a lion's den. They would never let a merchant's daughter be the true mistress." He sighed helplessly. "This Lord Valerius, I've had him investigated. He is in love with the Earl's second daughter. If you marry him..." Alas. I squeezed my father's hand, a look of determination on my face. "Just wait, father. I will be the mistress of that house." 3 months later, at the 80th birthday celebration of a duchess, I presented a painting, The 10,000-Year Pine, by the renowned contemporary artist Master Arden, on behalf of the Marquise's family. As soon as I sat down, I heard a sneer from across the room. "A mere merchant's daughter. How could she have an original painting by Master Arden? It must be a fake." I looked up and saw a young woman whispering to Lilith, a smirk on her face. It was Seraphina, Lilith's close friend. It seemed she was here to humiliate me on Lilith's behalf. I was not angry. I looked at her with a kind expression. "Miss Seraphina, since you say this painting is a fake, please tell me, who is the forger? Which painting was it copied from? And where did I buy it?" She had not expected me to fight back and was momentarily flustered. "I don't buy fake paintings, how would I?" "No such things." My smile vanished, and my expression turned sharp. I stared at her. "Since you cannot say, then why do you insist that I do not have an original Master Arden? and that it must be a fake. Serafina was flustered, her fingers twisting together. She instinctively looked at Lilith, hoping for help, but Lilith pretended not to see, so she had to stammer. Master Arden is a great artist. He only sells his paintings to those he deems worthy. You, a mere merchant's daughter. How could you be worthy? How am I not worthy? I interrupted. My father's businesses are all over the country. He loves to travel and happened to meet Master Arden and acquire this painting. What is wrong with that? You are just making excuses. How could Master Arden even look at a lowly merchant like you? Serafina argued desperately. Silence. The Duchess's attendant cut her off. My lady, watch your words. This is the Marchioness of Yong'an, not a merchant's daughter for you to address so casually. Serafina shot me a resentful glare, then huffed at Lilith and sat down in tears. I stood up and bowed to the Duchess in the main seat to thank her. This Duchess had had a past relationship with Master Arden, though they had not ended up together. She would know at a glance if the painting was real or not. Serafina was a fool, to be used as a pawn by Lilith like this. And Lilith was not one to hold her tongue. I had only tricked Lord Valerius into thinking the painting was a fake, and she was already eager to use it to attack me and ruin my reputation. It seemed that keeping Lord Valerius by my side on the day my pregnancy was confirmed had made her feel threatened. After the banquet, as I was leaving, I ran into Lilith, or rather, she had followed me. She stared at my belly with jealousy, her teeth clenched. Sister-in-law, you are so fortunate to be with child so soon. But childbirth is like passing through the gates of hell. I wonder if you will have the fate to give birth to the child and raise it. Her words were venomous, a blatant curse. I stopped and looked at her, a half-smile on my face. You need not worry, cousin. I have a vast fortune. I will hire the best physicians and midwives. Giving birth to and raising a child is not a problem for me. As for you, cousin, you are becoming an old maid. If you wait any longer, you'll have to be a second wife. My words stung her. She glared at me, then, as if remembering something, said with triumph, It is better than being a wife whose husband dislikes her and runs out all the time. I may not be married, but I have someone who truly loves me and holds me in his heart. I was a little surprised. Was she outing herself? I replied without mercy. You are right, cousin. The one you love truly does love you and meets with you in secret. He probably doesn't mind that you can't have children. But why hasn't he proposed to you after all this time? Her infertility was her sore spot. It was the reason she had been rejected by the Marquise's family. Enraged by my words, she trembled and lunged at me. Bitch! She roared. Pearl quickly stepped in, but Lilith raised her other hand to strike again. I immediately crouched down, clutching my stomach and crying out in pain. Miss Lilith, I have no quarrel with you. Why would you harm my child? My cries attracted the attention of those around us. Lilith panicked. She was jealous. Yes, but she wouldn't dare to harm my child. No, it wasn't me. I didn't do anything. Just as she was at a loss, Lord Valerius appeared from nowhere, swept me into his arms and strode away. Before leaving, he shot Lilith a look. I saw it clearly. It was a blatant warning. Of course, I didn't miss this opportunity either. I gave Lilith a triumphant look, which made her furious. After that day, Lord Valerius did not see Lilith for a while. He truly wanted a child and would not tolerate any risks. His cold shoulder towards Lilith was a warning that she was not to touch this child, but, in Lilith's eyes, it was a sign that he had changed his heart. So when she learned that he had skipped their anniversary to celebrate my birthday, she completely lost it. She rushed into the Marquise's estate. She deliberately wore the same dress she had been wearing the day she took the arrow for him. The moment she saw him, she bit her lip, her eyes wide, and let tears stream down her face, looking utterly pitiful. Lord Valerius, beside me, was also moved. He immediately let go of my hand and stared at her, as if he were about to rush over and embrace her. The guests were all astute. They looked at me, then at the two of them, and immediately understood. The atmosphere became strangely awkward. A few of the more gossipy ladies began to whisper. I pretended not to see their affair and tried to smooth things over. Cousin has arrived. Please, come and sit. It is so kind of you to come all this way for my birthday. I had a seat added, and personally led Lilith to it. Lord Valerius finally snapped out of it and looked at Lilith with annoyance, as if scolding her for her rashness, which had almost embarrassed him. After a few rounds of drinks, I noticed that the seats beside me and the one that had just been added were empty. I excused myself, claiming I was tired. As I passed by a rockery, I heard rustling sounds. Pearl heard them too and, thinking it was a couple of servants, was about to scold them when I stopped her. From behind the rockery came a woman's panting voice. I thought you had changed your heart after you had a child. If I hadn't taken that arrow for you, I would be able to have children too. A man's rough voice replied. I won't. I will only ever love you. But you must be careful around Evelina for now. Don't cause any trouble. She is pregnant, and we need this child. I've already bribed the midwife. As soon as she gives birth to a boy, she will be smothered with a pillow. Pearl's eyes widened in shock. She covered her mouth, trembling. Their conversation continued. But I am jealous. The thought of you neglecting me for that lowly merchant's daughter makes me so sad. What is there to be sad about? As soon as she dies, I will bring you into the family, and the son will be raised by you. I didn't listen to the rest. It was all filth. But his plan, how was it so similar to mine? I had also bribed Lord Valerius's personal attendant long ago. As soon as my son was born, he would get his master drunk in celebration, and he would accidentally fall into the pond and drown, fitting dispose of the father, keep the son plan. It seems I'll have to change my plan. If I don't die that day, Lord Valerius will likely not be in the mood to drink. I walked on, lost in thought, and soon found myself back at my own courtyard. Seeing me so calm, writing a letter, Pearl grew anxious. She paced back and forth, stomping her foot. I glanced at her but continued to write. Only after I had filled a whole page did I lift the paper and blow on it. Pearl, look! Is this calligraphy beautiful? She grabbed my hand, her voice urgent. My lady, how can you be in the mood to write? The Marquise is trying to harm you. I looked at her and couldn't help but laugh. What is there to be afraid of? Pearl, fortune and misfortune are two sides of the same coin. You must have faith in your mistress. But, shh. I placed a finger on my lips. Don't say such unlucky things. Pearl, you've been with me for so long. Have you ever seen a business deal I couldn't handle? She thought for a moment. Number. So, don't worry. This is just a big business deal. I folded the letter and tucked it into her hand. Find a fast horse. This must reach my father. She took the letter, her face dawning with realization. So you had a plan all along, my lady. I smiled and nodded. She was finally at ease and ran off. A gust of wind rustled the leaves. A large shadow fell over the ginkgo tree in the courtyard. I looked up at the sky. A dark cloud had just passed over the sun. It was going to rain. Lord Valerius's comforting words behind the rockery had worked. Lilith did not cause any more trouble, and my belly grew larger each day. Soon, it was time for me to give birth, to ensure nothing went wrong. Lord Valerius had 2 midwives follow me everywhere, even standing guard when I used the privy. I sneered inwardly but wore a grateful expression. You are so good to me, husband. I received a letter from my father today. He and my mother are coming to the capital to see me. They should be here in about 2 days. Lord Valerius was a little surprised. Your parents are coming. Yes, they want to be here for the birth and to see their grandson. He was silent, his mind clearly working. That night, after drinking my pregnancy tonic, I was seized by a sharp pain and was immediately taken to the delivery room. In a daze, I looked around and saw that the room was filled with my husband and mother-in-law's people. Even Pearl was kept outside. Pearl, Pearl, I want Pearl with me, I screamed. From outside, Pearl also shouted to be let in, but her voice grew fainter and fainter. I heard Lord Valerius say, My lady, focus on the delivery. Pearl and I will be waiting for you outside. A wave of excruciating pain hit me, and I almost fainted. A maidservant encouraged me. Don't be distracted, my lady. Push, push. I took a deep breath and, without a second thought, focused on giving birth. I don't know how long passed. I was numb with pain when I suddenly heard a loud cry and the midwife's excited voice. Congratulations, my lady, my lord. It is a boy. My mother-in-law was overjoyed. Quick, bring the child out for me to see. Lord Valerius was also ecstatic. I have a son. Then they both gave the midwife a look. The midwife received the signal, nodded, and turned to go back into the room. Pearl, who had been watching closely, saw this and, forgetting all decorum, rushed towards the delivery room to protect me. But she was stopped by the servants at the door and pushed to the ground. Pearl panicked, scrambled to her feet, and was about to charge again when Lord Valerius's guards pinned her to the ground. What are you doing? I want to see my mistress. He ignored her, his eyes fixed on the door, waiting for the midwife to come out and announce my death. In just a moment, the midwife who had just gone in came out, holding the baby. Heaven has blessed us. Mother and son are both well. Lord Valerius's eyes widened in disbelief. He forced the words through his teeth. What did you say? The midwife smiled and repeated, Congratulations, my lord. Mother and son are both well. His expression suddenly changed. He strode towards the room. Pearl was terrified. She struggled free from the guards and blocked his path. You can't go in. He gave her a dark look, ignored her, and pushed her aside. Suddenly, there was a commotion outside, and a loud voice boomed through the night. Son-in-law, how is my daughter? Lord Valerius froze, his foot just inside the door. He turned stiffly. He saw my father and mother laden with gifts, arriving at the delivery room. Am I late? Has the baby been born? A strange silence fell over the scene. It was my mother-in-law who reacted first, forcing a guilty smile. You've come at the perfect time. Evelina just gave birth to a healthy boy. Mother and son are both well. She then nudged Lord Valerius. He finally managed a strained smile and took the baby from the midwife. Father-in-law? Mother-in-law? What a coincidence. He would never have guessed that the letter about my parents arriving in 2 days was a trick. My father and mother had actually been waiting in the capital for half a month. My mother walked straight into the delivery room. I'll go see Evelina. Pearl followed, still crying. I took both their hands and gave them a reassuring smile. Don't worry, those servants were all bribed by me. They won't do anything to me. Pearl was still crying. My lady, this was too dangerous. What if they had betrayed you? They wouldn't have, I said, shaking my head. No one could have offered them a higher price. My principle has always been that money makes the world go round. There is nothing money can't do, if there is. It just means the price isn't high enough. Lord Valerius's expenses were all coming from my pocket. If he could bribe the midwife, so could I. It is just business. The highest bidder wins. In the middle of the night, after everyone had left and Lord Valerius had returned to his own courtyard, I dismissed the servants and asked my father, who was sitting by my bed, Have you taken care of the matter I mentioned in my letter? My father nodded solemnly. Don't worry, everything has been done as you said. He then clutched his chest with a pained expression. I even had to spend half of my fortune. I couldn't help but smile. My father was so adorable. A few months ago, I had written to my father, telling him that the national treasury was empty and the border was in turmoil. I had asked him to rally the wealthy merchants of the South to raise funds in the name of serving the country, to buy grain and cotton clothes to send to the border. He didn't know why I had asked him to do this, but he had done it, and he had done it well. I gave him a thumbs up. The general has already defeated the enemy. Your half-fortune was well spent, to prevent the family from harming me while I was weak during my postpartum confinement. My father and mother decided to stay and take care of me. My mother-in-law was not pleased. She put on the airs of a dowager marchioness and complained that we, a merchant family, were uncouth and were overstaying our welcome. Fortunately, my parents were not thin-skinned and pretended not to hear. As for Lord Valerius, when Lilith heard that I had given birth safely, she thought he had betrayed her and threatened to hang herself. I don't know how he managed to placate her. But I had no time for such things, enjoying this rare family reunion. Unfortunately, time flew by, and the month was soon over. When we parted, my mother held my sleeve, her eyes misty. Evelina, who knows when we will see each other again? I hugged her. I had Lilith to thank for this child. If it wasn't for her constant arguments with Lord Valerius, he wouldn't have come to my courtyard every time he got drunk. My mother-in-law was the most pleased. She was convinced I was fertile, so she suggested to Lord Valerius that I continue to have children, and that he should marry Lilith as a co-wife. When Pearl overheard this and rushed to tell me, I was practicing my calligraphy. I didn't even look up. Lilith won't agree. There is a world of difference between a co-wife. Sure enough, that night, Lord Valerius's attendant secretly came to report that Lilith had refused, and had once again used her life-saving grace to threaten him. And Lord Valerius, as expected, had given in, swearing that he would get rid of me after this child was born. But he had underestimated a woman's jealousy. Lilith was convinced that he would not get rid of me, so she decided to take matters into her own hands. On the day the general returned victorious, the streets were packed. I was also there to watch. I had originally cleared a space on the second floor of a restaurant to watch. As the general passed on his horse, someone shouted, "The second floor has a good view. Let's go up." And a crowd rushed past the guards and surged up the stairs. In the chaos, Lilith, who had come with the crowd, suddenly bumped into me. I stumbled forward, my belly hitting the railing. I cried out in pain and fell from the second floor. Pearl's eyes widened in horror. She reached for me but missed. I closed my eyes, waiting for the impact. But I was caught. The pain I had expected never came. I opened my eyes to see a bearded face. It was the general. He was about to put me down when he saw me curled up, my face contorted in pain. "It hurts, my stomach. It hurts." Pearl, who had already run downstairs, pushed through the crowd and took me from him. "Pearl, the baby. Save my baby." In that short time, my face had turned pale. Pearl looked at my skirt and saw a patch of red. Her voice was already choked. "Is there a physician here who can help my mistress? She is the Marchioness of Yong'an Evelina." The general looked at Pearl. "Who did you say she is?" Tears were streaming down Pearl's face. "The Marchioness of Yong'an Evelina." The world spun. I was in someone's arms, and the pain made me faint. When I woke up, I was back at the Marquise's estate. Pearl, who was by my bed, had cried her eyes red. She told me the general had personally brought me back. I looked beside me. My mother-in-law's eyes were filled with disappointment, and my husband's face was complicated. The physician shook his head and sighed. "The Marchioness has just given birth and is pregnant again. This miscarriage has damaged her body. It is unlikely she will be able to conceive again." His words were like a bolt from the blue. I was stunned for a long time before I came to my senses. I grabbed Lord Valerius's sleeve and said with hatred, "Husband, it was her. It was Lilith who pushed me. She harmed our child." A flicker of guilt crossed his face but quickly disappeared. "Evelina, you must be delirious. There were so many people that day. How could it have been Lilith? You have lost a child today. You must be in great pain. I will have the physician prescribe some calming medicine for you. You must rest well." I felt as if I had been struck by lightning and slowly let go of his sleeve. I fell back onto the bed, lost. Yes, I had forgotten. He and Lilith were on the same side. How could he blame her for me? He already had a son. This child was just lost. At night, Lord Valerius came with a bowl of medicine. "Evelina, this is a new calming medicine from the physician. It will help you recover." I looked at him with scorn. "Just recover?" He paused, then said gently, "Drink it, you will get better." I laughed, and my laughter turned to tears. I took the bowl and drank it in one gulp. I had schemed so much, but in the end, it was all for nothing. He tucked me in, a look of pity in his eyes. "I will drink medicine with you every day from now on, Evelina." I turned my back to him. The night passed in silence. Lord Valerius, who prided himself on being a man of his word, drank medicine with me every day after my miscarriage. But I was too heartbroken. The medicine did not help. I became drowsy and spent most of my days in a daze. Pearl noticed something was wrong and tried to send a letter to my parents, but was caught and confined to my courtyard. My child was also taken away by my mother-in-law, under the pretext of preventing him from catching my illness. About a month later, the estate became lively again. Painters and carpenters came to work, and the courtyard next to mine was being renovated. I asked Pearl, "Why is it so noisy outside?" She lowered her head and covered her mouth, saying nothing, but I understood. "Are they preparing the courtyard for Lilith? She is going to marry him, isn't she?" Pearl closed her eyes and finally nodded. I sighed and turned over to go back to sleep. Let them be happy for a few more days. 2 days later, the gate to my courtyard was thrown open. A woman in a yellow brocade dress burst in. It was Lilith. She looked at my sickly form on the bed and leaned over, smiling with triumph. "Evelina, so what if you married him? So what if you had a child? He still loves me. You probably don't know, but he has been giving you poison to marry me. You don't have many days left, and your child will call me mother in the future." I looked at her and said with scorn, "I was right that day. You can only be a second wife. So what if you marry him? You still can't have children. Do you think that years from now, when you still can't have a child, he won't blame you for killing his second child?" Lilith, heaven's retribution can be forgiven, but self-inflicted retribution cannot. Lilith, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, flew into a rage. "You are still talking tough at death's door. You can say that to the king of hell." With that, she stood up and looked down at me, sneering. "Look at you. You are like a stray dog." I closed my eyes, not wanting to look at her anymore. "Then you'd better be careful. A stray dog's bite is not something you can withstand." Pearl, show her out. Not long after Lilith left, Lord Valerius came with the last bowl of medicine. "Evelina, it is time for your medicine." I looked at the dark concoction and asked, "Husband, if I drink this, will I ever wake up again?" He looked away, his expression pained, but he said nothing. His silence was an answer. I sighed. "Fine." I took the bowl and drank it in one gulp. He tried to stop me, his lips moving, but he said nothing. I looked at him with a bitter smile and raised the teacup on the table to toast him. The red strings are broken. The bright mirror is shattered. The morning dew has dried. The fragrant time has passed. A song of white hair, a farewell of sorrow. Eat well and do not think of me. Today, I toast you with tea and bid you a long farewell. Hearing this, he shed tears, and unconsciously, also drank the tea on the table. Before he could say anything, a sharp pain shot through his chest, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The tea is poisoned." In his shocked gaze, I slowly stood up and looked down at him, no longer looking like a dying woman. "Husband, how does it feel to be poisoned by the one you sleep with?" He clutched his chest, unable to breathe. "Samon," I interrupted him. "No need to shout. This entire courtyard is filled with my people. No, the entire Marquise's estate is filled with my people. You venomous woman." He glared at me. "It was all an act." I smiled at him. "Yes, it was. Aren't you surprised? Do you think you are the master of this house? The midwife you bribed, the attendant by your side, the physician who treated me, they are all my people?" I knelt down and looked at his pained expression. He struggled but could not get up. Watching his comical struggle for life, I knelt down. "Husband, do you know why I was willing to marry into the Marquise's family and have your son? It wasn't just you who coveted my family's wealth. I also coveted your title. Oh, and I forgot to tell you. The second child was a fake. To create an opportunity for you to harm me, I went to great lengths and spent a lot of money to buy a fake pregnancy potion, and then staged a miscarriage just for you. You are not ruthless enough. You couldn't even get such a simple thing done right, so don't blame me for being ruthless." He pointed at me with hatred, gasping for breath, unable to speak, and fainted. I looked at him with disgust and had him carried away. That night, Lord Valerius was seen leaving my chambers and swaggering out of the estate. He even had a drink at a tavern before going to meet Lilith. The next day, when my mother-in-law saw me standing before her, hale and hearty, she was so shocked her jaw nearly dropped. I bowed respectfully. "Good morning, Mother." My husband's medicine from last night was truly effective. After drinking it, I am completely well. My mother-in-law was in disbelief. She stumbled to my courtyard, searched it, and then returned. Where is he?" "My husband went out last night. He said he had a case to attend to." "Impossible," she shouted. "Where have you hidden him?" Just then, a servant stumbled in shouting, "Bad news, my lady. My lord. He is in trouble." Lord Valerius was dead. He had died during a secret meeting with Lilith, on the bed they had set up in a courtyard outside the estate. The physician's diagnosis was death by overexertion. When my mother-in-law and I arrived, the two of them were still on the bed, their clothes in disarray. The moment my mother-in-law saw her stiff husband, she spat up a mouthful of blood and fainted. The Earl's family also arrived. The guards from both families surrounded the courtyard. The moment Lilith saw me, her eyes turned red, and she lunged at me. "It was you! It must have been you! You killed him!" The Countess, embarrassed, grabbed her. "Keep your voice down! Do you think you are in a glorious position?" I threw myself on my husband's body and wailed, "Husband, what will I and our son do now?" I cried until I couldn't breathe. Lilith was about to lunge again but was slapped by the Countess. She stopped and, clutching the covers, also began to weep. Her dream was shattered. I feigned grief for a long time before I calmed down. I looked at the two on the bed, closed my eyes, and said with a look of determination, "Since it has happened, and my husband is gone, but he was with you when he died, it must be that you loved each other. Would you be willing to be married to him in death, to fulfill both your wishes?" "What?" The Countess was the first to object, horrified. "Impossible!" Lilith, now more lucid, also screamed, "He is dead. I won't marry him. It was you. You killed him. I was drugged as soon as I entered the courtyard yesterday. Lord Valerius. Look, this is the one you love. She won't even mourn you yet. You gave your life for her." I wiped my tears with a look of heartbreak. "Cousin, do not twist the truth. I was at home, ill, yesterday. The whole street saw my husband go to that courtyard with you. Was it I who forced you to go?" Lilith's hair was a mess. She looked like a madwoman. "I know. You wrote that letter yesterday, Lord Valerius." Smack. The Countess slapped her again. "Shut up." Then she looked at me, her eyes pleading. "Marchioness, what will you do?" The Marquise dying during an affair with an earl's daughter was a scandal for both families. The best solution was to keep it quiet and swallow the bitter pill. At least, that is what the earl's family thought. And, of course, that is what I thought too. In the end, the earl's family paid a sum of money to the Marquise's family, and secretly took their daughter back. And I, with great sorrow, arranged for Lord Valerius's funeral. It is worth mentioning that there were too many people present that day. Despite both families' efforts to keep it a secret, the story spread and became the biggest joke in the capital that year. Lilith, unable to bear the strange looks and whispers, eventually committed suicide. And I became the pitiful woman in everyone's eyes. The common people all sympathized with me. My mother-in-law, after fainting that day, never woke up. I single-handedly arranged for her funeral as well, which made everyone pity me even more. A widow and her son, with a vast fortune and a grand estate, were easy targets, just as everyone was speculating whether I would be bullied by other nobles. The great general suddenly stepped forward and adopted me as his sister, and my son as his godson. From then on, no one dared to have any designs on the Marquise's estate. Me.I'd was now the heir and would inherit the title upon coming of age. At the end of the year, my parents came from the south to visit. Seeing how well I was managing the estate, they couldn't stop praising me. "Evelina, you are your father's pride. Every step you take is perfectly calculated." Summono knocked on the door. It was the great general and his wife. The general's wife held my hand. My dear sister, we owe you so much. If it wasn't for you and the merchants rallying to send us supplies, the outcome of that war would have been uncertain. I smiled and squeezed her hand. It was my brother who was capable, able to protect our borders and defend our land. And so, everything was settled.